Now that we have the HTML and JavaScript working for our page, let's focus on the style. We have some new elements we're working with. We have the label and the input text box and the button. So let's see how we can add style to these. Notice how the alignment of our input text boxes is pretty random. It's actually not really random, it's just at the end of the label. So the text box begins wherever the label ends. And so we get this kind of mixed, where everything's kind of different widths across it. So we can fix that by actually giving the label itself a specific width. So let's say that we wanted it to be 320 pixels wide, and we refresh that. Nothing happens. This is because it's an inline element, and the width property has no impact on an inline element. So we can change the display. Now I still want it to be inline, but I can use Inline Block, and that allows that width property to have an impact and still leaves the label inline, so it'll come right after another. Now we see this alignment of the text boxes. So they're all aligned at the end of that 320 pixel label. Well, I don't like the labels so far away, so I'm going to align them to the right, and that'll put them up against the text box. I want a little bit more space there, so I can simply add padding right of 8 pixels. And I want the font size to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to set the font size to 20 pixels. Let's see how our labels are working. And there. So now we have these nice labels, and we have text input boxes that are aligned up together. And so it makes our page look a little bit more orderly. Now let's style the actual inputs. So these are input elements, and currently we only have type equals text, but let's go ahead and use this attribute selector that we've used before. We've used it with class, but this is where you say the attribute, and in our case we're looking at the type, and we're actually going to say when the type is set to text, then apply these styles. So remember how we've used this attribute selector with class equals to column hyphen? So it's the same kind of thing. We're talking about the input element, and then when it has an attribute type equal to text, apply these. And that just means it'll only apply it to the text inputs. So I want to give it a background color, and I think I'll come up here and just get one of these. I want to change the border too, so that the border matches that color that I just added. And I'm just going to make it a solid border and 2 pixels big, and then choose one of the other colors from up here. Okay, so I've given it a background color and a border of my own choosing. So there we've got that going on. Oh, that border didn't work. That's missing a P. Okay, let's try again. All right, now it has the border. Now I want to set a specific width and height on these. So now watch on this one. I'm going to add width, and I'm going to set it to 120 pixels. And this is an inline element, but notice width works, and that just simply means that it's already an inline block element. So those text inputs are inline block already, so width works on them. But now I want to specify the height, because I think they're just a little bit not as tall as I want, right? So I do 32 pixels. And there. So now I have a nice site and a label. So I've styled the labels, I've styled the text inputs. Now let's style the button. So I want to move the button over into the center. So remember, to get something centered, I could do text align, but text align will only center it in the button, the text in the button, and it already is that. But I want to center the whole button. So I have to do a specified width, and I want it to be 160 pixels. And let's see what happens when I do that. Okay, so I get that width, and now I want to put the margin auto so it goes left and right. So their left and right ones are the same. Okay, now what I'm missing is the block. So I've got the width and the left and right margins the same, but it's not a block element. So now I need to change it to a block element because the button is an inline block element. So I need to change the display to block. So now I've got the three things that it takes to center an element when text align doesn't work. Okay, now let's go ahead and set the colors the way that I want. So I want that background color to be the same as the border here. And I want the font to be a little bit bigger. So I want that font size to be as big as the label. And there. So now I've added style to these new elements to create this different look.